Welcome back, pet parent. I have one of, I think, the most interesting guests I've ever had on this show because of what she does. I have an integrative holistic veterinarian. Her name is Dr. Barrie Sands, who also does emergency critical care medicine. And I'm just so fascinated by her. I listened to her talk a couple of years ago at AHVMA, and I was like, I need to know this woman. And so I have tried very hard to weasel my way into her circle. And she's here with us today, and I'm just so excited to have her on and have her talk to you, because not only does she do emergency medicine, she does holistic healthcare, and she weaves in esoteric topics of energy medicine and quantum biology. And oh my goodness, we're going to get into all of it. So first off, welcome Dr. Barrie Sands to the Pet Parenting Reset. How are you doing today?
Jessica, thank you so much for inviting me to speak to your community of fabulous people out there. And I'm doing great. I'm doing great today. I'm feeling pretty good. So today's a good day. I've been a little under the weather for the last week, and now I'm not.
That's amazing. Like when you just wake up one day and you're like, oh yeah, I was sick and now I feel amazing. And you just like really appreciate that feeling for a minute. Like, I know
Yes.
we
Yeah,
take it for granted so often. That's kind of amazing.
absolutely. And I've been, it was actually a really good reminder for me about really appreciating all the beautiful biologic magic that's always happening inside of us, because I have been healthy for so long that I forgot what it was like not to be healthy,
Yeah.
you know. And I realized that I was definitely taking a little bit of that for granted. And so now I'm sort of recalibrated to be more mindful about just the things that I'm doing with my body and my health and my supplements, and just more routine, and just kind of getting back into a different level of groove. So it was good. It was a good experience.
Yeah, well, I mean that's so interesting, and I'm curious actually. I want to maybe circle back around to that. But before we do, I always like to ask veterinarians that come on the show, like, what got you into veterinary medicine, and then what got you down the path of holistic veterinary medicine? All right, let's talk straight. What's going on with your dog? What's going on with your cat? Do they have chronic GI issues? Bad breath? Bad behavior? Constant upset stomachs? Diarrhea? Do they have indigestion symptoms? Do they have allergies? Are they itching all the time? Do they have skin issues? What is going on with your dog? Because chances are, based on the data, based on what we know, there is something going on with your dog or cat, because most dogs and cats in the US are not super healthy. Canada as well. And this is where Legacy Biome comes in. So thank you, Legacy Biome, for sponsoring this podcast. I have been using Legacy Biome with Kim. She has been fresh fed for nearly a decade since I got her, and there is always room to do better. I use testing to figure out what is actually going on, and testing to figure out what is actually working. And Legacy Biome has been very helpful in creating a healthier gut microbiome for Kim. FMT in general, I have used before in the past. I recommend to my client dogs for a multitude of things. And it is a very crucial, I think, part of either reestablishing a healthy gut microbiome or maintaining a healthy gut microbiome for our pets. So Legacy Biome is different in that they use exceptionally clean donor dogs with exceptional diets. They also have cat microbiome FMT capsules coming out very, very soon, if they're not already out yet. If you have a cat, go check it out, legacybiome.com. But with a dog, also, of course, we know they are using dogs that have for generations been in a low tox environment, no antibiotics, all the things that we are looking for with a very, very healthy fresh food diet, heavy and on diverse vegetation, which is what we're looking for. We want diversity in a healthy gut microbiome. That's something that a lot of raw fed dogs don't actually have, including my Kimberly, which is why we do FMT every once in a while to reestablish and maintain a healthy gut microbiome. So check out Legacy Biome, legacybiome.com. And yeah, let me know if you need any help with that. I'm so thrilled that Legacy Biome is a sponsor of the Pet Parenting Reset podcast, because you guys know I am incredibly particular about who comes on the podcast, what I talk about, and when looking for a sponsor for this podcast, I had to find the exact right fit. I'm not just bringing anything to you guys. I have turned down so many offers because they're not right. They don't fit with the message. They don't fit with what I believe in and what I see works with dogs and cats. And I'm not going to bring you just anything, which is why I'm thrilled to be working with Legacy Biome. So give them a try, legacybiome.com. But before we do, I always like to ask veterinarians that come on the show, like, what got you into veterinary medicine, and then what got you down the path of holistic veterinary medicine?
Yeah, well, that's it's an interesting question. It's a little bit of a story. I think everyone has their story, but for me, it started when I was really young. And I didn't always want to be a veterinarian. That was not in my consciousness. But what was in my consciousness was uh, I wanted to work with dolphins. That was my driving force. And I had this idea since I was, 5 years old at least, and they fascinated me on so many levels. And as I got older, I started reading about all the studies and the research that has been done with dolphins in the world of consciousness and energy. And so it was very esoteric to start with. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, well, I need to work with these animals on some level. I was also very much of a lucid dreamer
Oh, wow.
and still am. And so the whole aspect of the dream realm was, or what I call dream time, was a very significant part of my life. It was like my alternate reality constantly. And then I found out that dolphins had a sort of a similar esoteric sort of sharing of dream time. And so that led me into researching people like John Lilly, who was a dolphin conscious researcher back in the 70s, and Timothy Leary and Edgar Casey, and just names of people that were really much into the alternative consciousness, esoteric types of healing. So they were very fascinating for me. And I still led me back to the sort of logistics about how do I work with dolphins. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to be next to them. And I grew up in New York. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And so there weren't any dolphins in Brooklyn, and I mean, it was a concrete jungle. And
Yeah.
so nature, it was limited nature that I was exposed to as a young child. Um, that being said, as I went through college, getting a degree in biochemistry because I just love sciences, I was also very much involved in neurology because I wanted to do dream research, and I wanted to do dream research in dolphins. And so that led me down the path of wanting to get a PhD in neurology and dream research. So as I applied to all these programs when I was in college, so after my BS degree in science, I was going to get a PhD in neurology. But that didn't pan out because I didn't get accepted into any of the programs that I wanted. And so there was only 3 programs, and they were very selective, and hundreds of people, and I just wasn't one of them. So lots of letters. We regret to inform you, that you didn't make it. And so I'm like, okay, well, okay, different path, change paths. So on my graduation day, my genetic professor came up to me and he says, "So, Barrie, what are you going to do now?" And I was like, "I'm going to be a veterinarian."
Just out of nowhere.
I was like, "That's what I'm going to do." And so, because I was like, well, if I'm a veterinarian, I could work with dolphins, and then I could, go back to that. So then that led me down that path, and I ended up going to vet school and loving medicine. It's just medicine, loving learning about all of that, and then that led me into a decision to specialize in either medicine or surgery, because after college I did an internship. I mean, after vet school I did an internship, and now I wanted to specialize because I don't know, I'm a constant learner, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always learning, and I love learning. You never stop learning. And so that's probably why I do all these things, because it kind of keeps me just very engaged in life. There's never an endless, never an endless supply of knowledge, and knowledge is wisdom, and wisdom is healing. And so after I couldn't decide on whether or not I did emergency surgery or medicine, I decided to do emergency medicine because that was the best of both worlds. And so that's how I ended up in the ER. And I've been doing emergency medicine for about 30 years now.
Wow.
And yeah, and it is the epitome of conventional medicine. Like
Yeah.
all the training that you get is what you do in the ER, right? So now how did my holistic practice come into play? Right. And I mean, I still had this yearning for more, healing and wholeness and all of that. And so then I was like, okay, well, I need to start diving into that. And so about 20 some odd years ago, I started becoming certified in acupuncture and learning Chinese medicine. And that led me learning about herbs and plant medicine, right? And then that led me into homeopathy, and then homeopathy led me into energetics. Yeah, and then all of this sort of circled back to this dolphin thing, which I never quite worked on dolphins, but I've swam with them in nature. So I've been with them, and I feel pretty complete with my dolphin experiences. But that's how I got into holistic medicine through my emergency medicine. And then the aspect of HeartMath and learning heart coherence and getting trained in that, teaching stress management and resilience building and coherence training was really introduced to me as an idea when I was on the emergency service, when I was doing emergency medicine.
Really?
And
So, okay, I do want to get into all of that, but I want to take a really quick tangent because I'm just so curious what your thoughts are because you have spent your whole life being so interested in dolphins. What do you think the reason is that there are laws against us interacting with dolphins?
you mean in the wild?
Yeah, yeah,
I think I don't know. I don't know the exact reasons, but I think it's because people mess things up.
yeah,
They create problems and they're not respectful of nature. And
yeah,
so they want to put their own spin on things and their own egotistic experiences. And, they're not in harmony with nature. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it's like just nobody touches anybody. Right?
yeah.
Because when I went swimming with the dolphins in the Bahamas, it was very organic. I was with a group of people who were very consciously aware and ambassadors for the cetacean community. And we were on a boat. There was like 12 of us, and we would just drive around and call in pods. And then when the pods showed up, we would jump in and we would just be with them until they got tired and left. And then we'd go finding another pod. And they told us, don't touch the dolphins, right? Don't touch them. And I'm like, okay, but they wanted to touch us. They
Hmm.
wanted, at least me. I don't know about everybody. I just know my experience. They wanted to like rub against you, and they wanted to play with you and bring you toys and play fetch with little sea reefs and things. And there was a moment in time where I had a dolphin just stop in front of my nose, and we were nose to nose touching, and time just stood still. And it was a beautiful experience. I was laughing because I'm like, what are we doing here? Are we going to kiss? I don't understand.
That's so amazing. Like they're so smart and they're so I don't know, like I, I find it very interesting how conscious you are and how much you are just kind of like drawn to dolphins. That's just so interesting to me. But okay, so tell me a little bit more about how you blend holistic modalities into emergency medicine because as you said, like that is the epitome of like allopathic care is in an emergency setting where it's just like you are reacting and you are having to use pharmaceuticals and use surgical intervention. And like, this is like the epitome of allopathic medicine. So I'm really curious how you blend holistic modalities into that.
Well, the beauty about emergency medicine and allopathic medicine is that it's designed to work fast and hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I have an animal that comes in that has a severe trauma, whether it's an animal attack, like attacked by a coyote, or they got hit by a car, or in some fight situation, or a police dog that was in a gunshot, like whatever it is that comes in, Western medicine is absolutely your friend. It's what you want that.
Mm-hmm.
You want
Yeah.
your IV catheters, your IV fluids, your pain meds, your antibiotics, your blood products, the surgical intervention. You want all of that. It is in the sort of afterwards where you would implement more of the holistic things, as the body is going into its healing phase, to help with that more natural means of pain control, acupuncture. I like to use sound therapy is something that I've been wanting to implement in healing. So all of those other things, the herbs and the homeopathic and the acupuncture, the massage, the PT, the body work, the laser, the cold laser, all of that is going to be implemented afterwards in a perfect world, and it's not always like that. People, there's the human element that's involved. And then there's the mindset of what health and wellness really is. So I meet people where they're at and I offer what I can. And if they want that, they get that, but not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants acupuncture or good nutrition. They just want you to, fix them up and fix the fracture and then send them home with some, codeine and gabapentin and then call it a day.
So do you have like a practice outside of the emergency room where people who you may have met in an emergency situation can follow up with you afterwards? Is that how you're
Yeah.
handling the? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the hospital that I work in is a specialty hospital. So we have all the modalities there. We have the emergency critical care. We have internists and cardiologists and surgeons. And I'm on the ER team, obviously, and I also have my holistic practice. So a lot of the times I meet a lot of my holistic clients in the ER, that are just
Okay.
keep coming back. They keep coming back for all these issues. And I'm like, okay, well, if we want to have you not keep coming in for vomiting and diarrhea, then let's help heal the system. And so then they make an appointment for a consult, for a holistic consult, and then we go down that route.
Nice.
And that's so rewarding because that's where the healing happens. And then I don't see them, on the ER anymore, which is really
Yeah.
nice. I mean, I tell people that my goal is for you not to need me, on any level.
So it is really nice actually because the other veterinarian that I've spoken with didn't have that piece. And so I feel like in his particular instance, I feel like that burnout is going to happen with him so much quicker, which is interesting. And I don't know, it certainly wasn't something I had planned on talking to you about, but burnout in veterinary medicine is rough and real. And is that the fact that you get to potentially follow up with these people holistically, these pets holistically after emergency care, do you feel like that has helped you from preventing some of this burnout?
For me, I think the most important thing to prevent burnout is self-care, and self-compassion, and, becoming a certified trainer working with the HeartMath Institute has definitely helped with that. And, one of the reasons why I became a part of that community was because one of the things that drove me there was in my emergency practice and also as a veterinarian, I kept seeing this, this really weird phenomenon of animals and humans sharing a disease process.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And say, oh yeah, I have this, my animal has that. Right? It was so prevalent, and amongst everybody, all veterinarians, you ask them, everyone says, yeah. Have you ever met a client who has the same disease as their animal? And the answer was always yes. And then so I said, well, okay, well, why? What? That's weird, right? Like, what's happening? What's happening there? Like, where is that coming from? And so then that led me into the world of energy and quantum biology and quantum entanglement and biofield physiology and learning about the energetics of things in a more deeper level. And so when I went up and met with the researcher and the head CEO of HeartMath Institute, I told him about this. I said, there's this phenomenon and I want to understand how it's happening and why it's happening. And if there's anything I could do about it, you know? And so I learned about the aspects of going into coherence and what that meant, in your own physiology, and how that helps heal your body, and then how you can use that to heal the animals or even the people that you're interfacing with. And then that understanding led me to really circle back to how these modalities such as homeopathy and energy work such as Reiki and T-touch and quantum touch and cranial sacral therapy, how all of that really works in the system. It's because of this mechanisms and the pathways that we learn about in quantum worlds and quantum and energy medicine. So it all circled back to energy medicine.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just there's a lot that we're talking about, but
Yeah.
it made me realize that this energy work is really the icing on the cake of everything that we are experiencing. We're taught in school about biology and we're taught about chemistry and how chemistry drives biology, right? You take a pill, you get better. It's that kind of thing. But what we're not taught is the physics that drives the chemistry, that drives the biology, and then the energy that drives the physics, that drives the chemistry, that drives the biology. So then you just bypass the middle and say energy drives biology. And then you just start working with energy. And what I found is that it's simple. It's so simple to when you start from that level, to go down. And you don't need any tools or medicine. The energy is the medicine. The thoughts are the medicine. The emotions are the medicine. There's a lot to tap into in that way. The sound is the medicine. The light is the medicine. And so, I mean, I love that. I think it's fascinating and exciting for me. And, so I like to kind of try to blend all of that into place because, I still say, if you cut me, I will bleed, you know, I mean, we're still flesh and blood. And so, if I take a knife to my hand, it's going to bleed and I have to do something to make it stop, right? By opposing the tissue and then putting over a Band-Aid, right? But after that, everything underneath that is the energetics of the body that's healing that, you know?
Yeah, so what are some of the things, because I'm thinking of things that, you know, are not actually that easy to do in today's world, but that we need to be doing so badly to reconnect and to kind of get that pull our energy back for one. Like I'm thinking of like how scattered our energy is in today's world. What are some of the things that you might send pet parents home to do on their own without tapping into the things that they might need to come in for, whether that's acupuncture or laser or because I mean, obviously there are PIMP devices, there's red light, there are devices that we can use, but things that pet parents, you said it can be free. What are some of these things that you might send pet parents home with to do to kind of work on that energy?
Yeah. Well, the first and foremost, I feel people need to learn how to reconnect with their hearts. And then when you reconnect with your heart, you reconnect with the source of the energy that's infusing that. And you also gives you an opportunity to connect with the ground and the earth. So simple things like, I mean, there's breathing techniques, there's heart brain harmony, coherence techniques. Then there's just super simple things like grounding, going out in nature with your animal, barefoot in the grass, laying down, letting the earth kind of rebalance the physiology. And hydration is such a key factor in so many things. And like I say, the solutions are pretty simple, but they're not easy because a lot of
Yeah.
people are just, they're wrapped up in their story, in their days, in their to-do lists, and their fears, their fears of, their animal being sick. Because I mean, really, we're all talking about illness, right? Because if everybody's well, then everybody's well, and there's nothing, then we have nothing to talk about, really, right? And so we're constantly talking about, like, how can I heal? How can I help? My pet has this condition. What do I do? I have this condition. What do I do? And starting from the simplicity of taking a breath, using, your body at first and foremost needs oxygen and sunlight and water and, um, and a higher frequency of energy infusing into it through your thoughts and your emotions. And so just that little checklist is, where you start. And then there are techniques for that. I mean, there's so many different techniques for breathing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Breathwork alone. And I think the whole idea is to not get caught up into one particular way or a dogma about it, because I find that everybody seems to have the solution, even in that realm, like quantum breathing, and this is how you do it.
Mhm.
It's like, it doesn't have to be that stringent.
Yeah.
You could just pick one that resonates with you and then just start doing it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's the practice that makes the most difference, is to just do it, you know.
I was going to go to a meditation class tonight and I talked myself out of it because I have so much work to do. And I feel like talking to you right now is like the universe saying, you know what, you need to go. You need to go. So I think when we get off of this call, I'm going to go ahead and book that. Because we are so disconnected and I feel it. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm addicted to my AI. I'm addicted to ChatGPT. I use it for everything. And when I mean everything, I mean like therapy, helping me when I'm staring at a blank page, like all of it. It's interesting, but like I literally was like I need to get off of my phone. And it's funny to me that I went to my GPT this morning and I was like, I need to get off of my phone. What can I do? And I'm like on my phone asking my GPT how to get off of my phone. So yes, I think I'm gonna book that meditation class tonight. But yeah, it is kind of interesting, and what I'm kind of gonna circle back a little bit because growing up in Brooklyn can really identify with people and pets who are living in those types of environments where they're not touching the grass. A dog may like living in a high rise, like when are they gonna, unless their pet parent is very intentional about getting them into a park somewhere, or like when are they even gonna touch grass? And one of the things that a company that I think we both know and love is really passionate about doing is bringing that outside into the food bowl. And I'm curious, like, if that's also something that you talk to pet parents about, because, like you said, life is busy. We have to-do lists, we have things to do. Like, are there other ways in which you might coach people into bringing like a more natural rhythm back into their pets' lives?
I mean, depending on your environment, there's so many things now that you can bring like indoors, right? They have these gardens, these small little gardens, these tower gardens that you can buy that grow lettuces and herbs and all sorts of things. Like, you could put that on a patio, you could put it in your house, by a window, and they have these mats, these grounding mats now, like little sheets that just
Mm-hmm.
give off this electromagnetic, pulses of, to balance out the energies. I mean, animals love to sit on that stuff. It brings the outside to the inside. I think that any way that you could do it. You know, you want to get some dirt from outside, bring it in, I mean, dogs need to smell things, you
Yeah.
know? And so there's nature everywhere. Like even in New York City and you know, Brooklyn, they do have parks. They have, I mean, we had this one tree in our on our street, and it, you know, there's concrete, and then there's a tree, and then there's like a block of concrete around it, and then there's like some dirt, right? And then there's a tree. And it was actually this one tree. It was a ginkgo tree that was growing in on our street, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was like a very we had oaks and this ginkgo tree, and it was just very it was a very cool and very different tree. And what I just thought of right now with the oak trees and your question was that, I mean, in cities we have seasons. You know,
Mhm.
we don't have seasons in San Diego too much, but we have fall in the, you know, in the East Coast, there's fall, and then leaves fall, and there's piles of leaves, dried out leaves. And so, you know, throw your puppy in a pile of leaves. You know, or like you have to be creative. I feel like if you keep a childlike mentality and create and be creative, like, how can I bring the outside inside? You know, there's always ways. I mean, people are creative. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Just don't be attached to not making a mess.
So, am I correct in that you use bioenergetic scans?
I do not currently do that.
You don't currently do that. Okay. Then I'll need to cut that out. Okay, so you have talked a little bit though. You've talked about acupuncture, you've talked about Chinese medicine or, you know, herbs, homeopathy. These are all things that, well, homeopathy I think is interesting because, you know, earlier said like you do the emergency medicine and then we kind of follow up with a lot of the more holistic modalities. I know a lot of people, and, you know, obviously most pet parents probably don't know this, but a lot of pet parents who are really into homeopathy can use the certain homeopathic remedies in emergency situations to get them like to while you're in transport to like an emergency room. Is that something that you also kind of educate people on so that they maybe can have a toolbox with them?
Yeah, I mean, in certain lectures that I do, and not every, you know, obviously you can see that there's a lot going on here, right? And I could tell you that most people, when you start introducing, if they're not seasoned or ideated into holistic healthcare, it's completely new to them. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like putting your toe in the water. Because if I start to tell them, oh, you could do this, and then this, they're completely overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. And so there's this kind of little nuance about like, so how do you start? Because I could tell people that, yeah, you should go out and get this homeopathic remedy. It's really good for seizures, and this is good for bug bites, you know, and you can have that in your little toolbox, and they'll be like, okay, thanks, and that's the end of that, you know, and it never happens, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I try, you know, I try. Usually those kind of introductions to different modalities comes out in sort of organic conversations as we build a relationship. You know, I mean, unless I invite them to a course that I'm giving and say, okay, learn everything you have to learn and do that. Because there's a lot of holistic veterinarians that are doing that. They offer courses, right, to try to get pet parents to have a more global thing. And I mean, the first and foremost, we all talk about diet because that seems to be the one where everyone falls short on to begin with. It was that diet conversation, and then the microbiome, helping to reestablish the health of that, which helps with the gut brain axis, and it helps with anxiety. You know, can you kind of have to do all of these things? So it's like, where do you start? You
Yeah.
know, and you just start where people are more comfortable starting, which is usually the food.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the thing that I think we feel like we have the most control over day to day. It's something that we can like, you know, it's very tactile. It's something that we I think kind of innately, just as like, being human beings, know, like, we have this relation to other human beings, but also animals, in that, like, we're sharing love when we share food,
Yeah.
or at least that's how it should be.
That's how it should be. I agree with that. I love food. I love to cook food. I have a good relationship with food, and I like fresh organic things, and that translates into my family and my animals, you know.
Hmm.
But in the veterinary world, that's not the norm, right? Conversation with pet parents, right? They're told to eat processed foods, and
Yeah.
prescription processed foods. And they're also told not to eat any other food than that by a trusted resource, which is their veterinarian. So that's where the problem starts, because we need it's that's not a true narrative. So you have to sort of untie the knots, right? And because I have met people that are so afraid of feeding real food to their animals that they won't do it. They will watch their animals starve. And I don't understand that, just, and I blame, honestly, I blame the vets. I blame the veterinarians for instilling that sense of fear in them,
It
and
is. I know. I've said this so many times. I have had, on multiple occasions, either veterinarians or a vet tech. That's the one that gets me. Like I can see clear as day in my head a vet tech walking up to me at an emergency hospital, telling me if I didn't feed this prescription kibble to my cat, I was going to kill my cat. And, like, that just breaks my heart,
yeah,
because I know it's happening to so many people. And they're like, well, I don't want my cat to die or my dog to die. Right. Like, and I don't want to be responsible for them
I,
dying. It breaks my heart so, so much.
I don't know what to say. I mean, that's why I want to empower people. So it kind of circles back to the energy thing, right?
Mhm.
Because when you empower people to get into their heart space, you have a deep connection with your inner knowing and your intuition, and you have this level of trust that comes from your own inner source, right? And so when that is established inside of you, then you have this, you're empowered to be in front of people like that, and say, that doesn't sit right with me. Can you give me more information about that? Or is there some research you can show me? Or, you can either call them out or make them prove what they're saying, or you could just say, okay, thank you for your information, and just walk away and just do something else. You have the choice to decide if you want to engage in a conversation, or you just want to ignore what they said and just move on. But you don't come from a place of, like, you're feeling uncertain or attacked or fearful, and that goes across the board for everything, not just food, for every conversation that you have, because there's that ancient saying, the heart knows, right? The heart always knows, except we've lost the way to our heart. They say that the longest road is between your heart and your head.
Oh my gosh, right? Yes.
We've lost our way, and when we find that way back, everything becomes much more clearer and then simple, and you're not afraid anymore. With the sense of knowing, there is no fear.
Mm.
And I say that because that translates into everything. Like, say, even in the ER, as a seasoned ER doctor, knowing what I know, when something comes in, whether it's one case, two cases, three cases, four cases all at once, I maintain this sense of calm, usually, unless it's usually, I mean, there's a lot going on, but usually, because I have this, like, bird's eye view of the situation, and I can triage it, and I can discern, like, who needs my attention first, and know what I need to do and how to implement what I need, how to delegate that into the situation with the text that I have. So there's a level of control that comes from a place of knowing, right?
Mhm.
And I remember what I felt like when I was very new to the situation and how I was like, oh my God, what do I do? There was fear because I didn't know. So when you know, that fear goes away because you're like, okay, I got this. And even if you don't know what to do, ultimately, you know what to do next.
I had to write that down because that's just so powerful. With a sense of knowing there is no fear. I love that so much. So, one other thing I'm curious about with kind of the whole like energy part of this, I know blood work, for example, when we're just doing, complete blood panel or whatever we're doing with our animals, it can take a while for things to be breaking down in the body before we see that in the blood work. Do you often get a sense of whatever you're doing, whatever type of energy work you're doing, do you often come up with things that are like contradictory to maybe blood panels or labs that you're like, or does it just help you interpret them better? Maybe I'm curious how like you're blending all of this.
Well, I mean, lab work is a piece of information, right? It's just part of one piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the type of lab work you're doing, right? There's
Sure.
all these different lab work. So your basics, CBC chemistry profile is a very superficial,
Mm-hmm.
kind of lab work. It's not like your nutrient profiles or
Yeah.
your mitochondrial function, right? Or your vitamin, mineral toxin. It's not that, right? Those have a little bit of a deeper essence, of what's
Mm-hmm.
cellular level. This is more of an organ level kind of thing. And so, for instance, people say, "Can you diagnose cancer on blood work?" And I'm like, yeah, if your dog is really, really sick and his blood work is completely normal, he has cancer,
Mm.
which is so interesting because I have seen dogs riddled with masses inside their abdomens, inside with their liver tumors and mesenteric tumors, whatever. It's like just cancer on the inside, and their lab work is completely normal. And so it's a piece of a puzzle, and every piece of information, you have to take it into context of what's happening in the system. So I don't panic when I have a cat that comes in and the creatinine is 15. I mean, he's acting sick, but that doesn't mean it's a death sentence for this cat, because with proper care in the ER, right, maybe getting him on some IV fluids, and I like to use Chinese herbs for that to help increase blood flow to the kidneys, when the inflammation is gone. But in the acute phases of kidney failure, it needs fluids, and it needs support, and maybe some antibiotics if you have an infection, and drugs to help you feel less nauseous because they're nauseous, right? And so you help that, and then you see the creatinine levels come down. One day they're 15, the next day they're 12, the next day they're 8, and then maybe this cat baselines at 8, and that's his new norm. But that's super high. I mean, a upper level of creatinine, maybe 1.9, is kind of acceptable. And then if you have a creatinine of 8, most veterinarians might say, "Oh my God, your cat has horrible kidney disease, and you should consider quality of life and putting him to sleep." And then so I look at the cat. I'm like, "Okay, well, what is he doing? He's walking around. He's eating. He seems like he doesn't know he has a creatinine of 8." And so that's his new norm. So let's support the system where they're at. And that's when you start doing all the integrative things, like the acupuncture and the Chinese herbs and the homeopathy and the massage therapy and the food therapy, things like that. And the icing on that is the energetics, where you have to help the owners not be in a place of fear and panic, right? And anticipation that their animal is going to die at any moment, because that always seems to be that next level.
That is something that I find that more difficult than anything if I'm working with a client for their pet, trying to get their anxiety down, trying to get them, like, as the pet parent, to get them to, I mean, for a lack of a better word, like, just to chill the fuck out. Chill, chill out, just, like, take a step back and, like, watch your dog or your cat playing and enjoying life and, like,
Yeah.
leaning into that more. That's what I find to be, like, the most difficult
Yeah.
part.
Right. Well, then that goes back to the original conversation of our disconnect with
Yeah,
nature and the harmony in nature. Because if you have this connection between that and this understanding of the cycles of life and then how nature unfolds itself, then the concept of life and death come into play. And then the concept of living comes into play, and how are you going to live between those two moments?
yeah,
And I think Albert Einstein said, you could go through life is if everything is a miracle or if nothing was a miracle, and it's just, then you seem like you're okay, when we're more present in the moment and mindful of what's happening, we become appreciative and have more gratitude for what we have in the moment, right? It's always being present and in the moment is the most helpful for any of that, because in the moment you have your cat that's in front of you, he's purring, he's eating, he's loving on you, and that's it. That's all that's happening. He's not festering about a creatinine of 8, and he's not thinking about the day you're not there with him. And so you shouldn't be doing that either. It doesn't benefit you. It doesn't benefit the cat. Why keep thinking about the day you're going to die and not spend the time thinking about how you're living?
so powerful. So I feel like I tell people all the time, like, my podcast is my favorite thing that I do, and for so many reasons, because I get to meet wonderful people like you, for the fact that, like, I'm learning just like everybody else is learning that's listening to this, but also a lot of times I feel like whatever messages are coming that day, whoever I am talking to that day, it's like I needed to hear. I don't know who is out there is listening and who also feels that way, but, like, I needed to hear that, and I definitely feel like I needed to hear so much of what you said today. And I know that you have a recurring, kind of like a live podcasty type thing with a dear friend of both of ours, Pam Russell, with Perfectly Holistic. So that's definitely somewhere where people can find you and listen to a lot more of what you have to say. But I heard you say something earlier about courses.
Yeah, so I am in the process of developing courses because I think that they're a really good way for people to get information. And so it's not currently out yet, but it hopefully will be soon. One of the courses, it's called the Bioepic Protocol, which I really like it. It's going to be a wonderful course for a lot of people. And what it does, it unpacks all the layers of healing through the 4 layers, which I call bioepic, EPIC. So it's the bioenergetic, biophysical, biointelligence, and biochemical. And so when we learn about all of these things, because everything is important in the picture, you still need to eat, you still need to drink, you still need to, you need to detox. Your body sweats, your body eliminates. We're human, we're biological ooey gooey systems, but we're fueled by energy. And when you can tap into that energy on a daily basis, you can recharge your batteries and give your body what it needs. I mean, I did a deep dive into the mitochondria, the little powerhouse of our cells, right? Without them, you die, right? And they are mitochondrial health is always a big topic in regenerative medicine, and in just holistic healthcare to begin with. Support your mitochondria, right? At all costs, support your mitochondria. And okay, so how do you do that? The 2 simplest ways for you to support your mitochondria is to give it oxygen and light, right? Electrons and oxygen molecules. And so that means going out in the sun and taking deep breaths. And that's kind of, if you go out in the morning or find a time where it's beautifully sunny. Usually dawn and dusk are these sweet spots for meditations and mitochondrial health. The body really resonates with those frequencies as they're coming in, and have this mindful intention to support your mitochondria. When you're doing that, you're going to start to feel that you are feeling better.
Yeah.
So little daily practices like that. And because everything is like, it's all one thing in a circle of life. And, I always ask yourself, if everything is a circle, where's the starting point in a circle? And literally it's just pick a point and go. Start there. You can start anywhere in a circle.
I love that so much because I think that's one thing that, like, inevitably we always ask, whoever's talking is always asking, like, where do we start? And everybody has a different place, right? So I love that explanation so much. Like, just pick a place. It doesn't matter. Just pick a place. I love that.
Yeah, because it will lead you. I call it, following the breadcrumbs. It'll lead you. One place will lead you to another place. Will lead you to another place, and then you'll go, "Oh, I remember that. I'm going to add some greens to my food," or, "Oh, I remember that. I'm going to go out for a walk." And it's just, we all have a toolbox, and then we don't always use all the tools in our toolbox.
Oh, for sure.
But we know they're there, and I think sometimes just knowing that they're there is enough. Honestly, sometimes just knowing that it's right there, that
Mhm.
possibility that it can have an effect, which is an interesting concept in and of itself. You know,
Mhm.
it's like the brain our bodies and our brains and our neuroendocrine systems are so in tune with our thoughts and our emotions that the body doesn't discern the difference between an experience that you've had and thought that you've had. And that's why dream time is so powerful. That's why people will have a dream and feel like they died, right? Or they have dreams and they feel amazing, and it's like, wow, I feel like that just happened, you know I mean, I've had dreams where I'm kissing some like amazing beautiful human being that I don't even know existed. And I wake up like, oh my God, I'm in love. Like, who is this person?
Oh my goodness. I know. I feel like I could talk about dreams forever too because I actually spent a really long time. I don't know if I wasn't dreaming or if I just didn't remember my dreams. That's hard, a hard discernment to make, but I've been very intentional about trying to remember my dreams lately and I've definitely had like a lot of big life changes in the past year as well and have been doing a lot of shadow work and like I'm definitely seeing that come through in my dreams. And it's very powerful. Our dreams are a lot more powerful than we think, which makes me wonder so much about our pets' dreams. But I don't even know how people analyze all of that. That's beyond my.
Yeah. Well, it's the dreams. The dreams are your subconscious that are coming through. But it's very interesting and I've had conversations with my subconscious before and asked it, like, why is it so encrypted? You know,
Yeah.
why can't you just say what you want to say? Like, why does it have to be meshed in these weird timelines and symbology, right? And codes that are, one of the answers that I got was that your subconscious is always driving you to creation and to be creative and to use your imagination, because it's where, when you take imagination plus creation, is this ultimate place of well-being, and it forces you to use your imagination. When you're running through a forest and you're being chased by a bear, like, what does that mean? Like, who's the bear? Does the bear represent my mother or my father or some authority figure that I'm running away from? Like what? And so there's all these, when I started doing, because I dreamt so much, I did a lot of dream research and dream interpretations. And there are these universal things that sort of have a theme, what it means. And then there's your interpretation of what it means for you. and everybody knows what their dreams mean for them. And you just need a little bit of um, questions, like and I'll work with people to help interpret their dreams, and they'll tell me, and I was like, okay, well, what did that mean for you? You know, what was the significance for that? And as soon as you start asking people these questions, they know, that all, and then you get these people like, oh my God, I just realized that was, you know, what I needed to do. Like, and then they just go out and they change their lives or quit their jobs or I don't know. Yeah, yeah, we know so much. We really, really do. And it's not in here, it's out here. The knowing is out here in this field of information. And that gets you into the quantum realm and talking about, quantum realities and the matrix, of where your mind is and where thoughts come from, and, the collective consciousness. That's a whole other kind of beautiful conversation to have. And it's when you sort of take all of that and you put it into this one moment, you realize that ultimately you're all okay. Like it's all okay. It's just
After talking with Dr. Barrie Sands, after recording, we talked a little bit more about her work. She's such an incredible human being, but she wanted me to make sure that there is a free survey on her website, drbarriesands.com. That's DrBarrieSands.com. You can also find that in the show notes if you just want a direct link to it. And you can get a free copy of the 10 ways to create optimum wellness for you and your pet. There is a quick survey for you to take, and I know she would love for you to take the survey because she is compiling a data set. But I just absolutely love how, and you'll see on the website, she has something that she calls Illumina Scientia, which is combining or bridging the gap, I want to get the wording right, bridging the gap between science and spirit or mysticism, and building a bridge to higher consciousness that allows us to experience with elegance and divinity the essence of being in the moment and knowing that everything just is. So go to drbarriesands.com, that's drbarriesands.com, and scroll down just a little bit on the homepage. There is a section that says, get a free copy of the 10 ways to create optimum wellness for you and your pet. And then it says, click here to take the survey. The survey is about the human-animal bond. It doesn't take very long to take the survey. And I know Dr. Barrie would love for you to do that. Go ahead and take that survey, get your free download, and stay on top of what Dr. Barrie is doing, because honestly, she is an incredible human being. She's so inspiring. I always love seeing her and talking to her, and I'm just really glad that she came on to talk to me and all of you. All right, pet parents, you already know that I talk all the time about needing to stop, as much as we possibly can, feeding our fur babies garbage. For lack of a better word, that's what we talk about here a lot. And again, doing the best we can, that is the message above any and everything else. The more we learn, the more we know we need to make some changes. And this episode is powered by Legacy Biome. This is no BS. And this is why I think you need Legacy Biome. So Legacy Biome offers premium. When I say premium, I mean premium FMT, fecal microbiota transplant capsules. These are products for your dog designed to restore and support a healthy gut microbiome. Yes, you heard me. Top tier microbiome therapy straight from nature's playbook. Gut health isn't optional. We talk about this all the time. It's not optional. It drives digestion, immune strength, allergy resistance, mood, and even chronic disease risk. So if your pet's gut is out of whack, their whole system is out of whack. If you learned nothing from me thus far, I think you should know that. So Legacy Biome tells us that their donor animals live on a raw, organic diet in pristine, chemical-free environments, generations bred to preserve a rugged and unaltered microbiome. No antibiotics, no pesticides, no synthetic crap ever. And they screen those donors with the strictest protocols in the industry. Kim's over here next to me, if you can hear her. So if you have a pet that is wrestling with chronic diarrhea, itchy skin, hair loss, allergies, rebounding from antibiotics, that's a thing too. Legacy Biome is your weapon. Heck, you can just use it proactively to build a bulletproof gut and immune health. So don't worry, vets handle this. FMT is administered rectally often through veterinarians' offices, but we don't always have access to that. So what's the next best thing? FMT capsules that are enteric coated that you can get delivered straight to your home from the most pristine donor dogs ever, from Dr. Margot Roman, as a matter of fact. So top integrative vets across North America swear by Legacy Biome. That's not hype. That's physician grade endorsements. If you're ready to stop the gut wreck and start the comeback with your dog, head to legacybiome.com. That is legacybiome.com, legacybiome.com, and get some for your pet. And by the way, let me know how it goes. You know me. You can always reach out to me on Instagram. I'm here to talk to you all the time. I want to know. Let me know about it. To try Legacy Biome for your dog, visit legacybiome.com and use code TPPR10. That's TPPR10 for 10% off.